Hello, I'm Jen, and welcome back to my channel, Literary Love 123, where I like to use my master's in English to discuss the horror genre from an academic standpoint. But I also like to have fun just talking about books with all of you. Today's video is a book tag video titled It's the King of Horror Stephen King Tag. So I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite authors in this awesome tag video. So stay tuned to hear about my thoughts on Stephen King and some of his books. This tag was created by the channel Jess Book Girl TV, and I saw the tag on Shelf Esteem's channel. So I will link both of them down in the description box below. This is kind of a long tag with 18 prompts. So let's get started. Question number 1: how did you get into reading Stephen King? So when I was 14, I was at a party one of my friends, and we watched the movie Pet Cemetery. And I had seen a few like Stephen King movie adaptations, but I had not read any books by him at that point. But I really loved the movie Pet Cemetery. And as it turned out, one of my best friend's moms, who was super cool, she had this huge collection of Stephen King books. So she let me borrow the book Pet Cemetery. And from that moment on, I was absolutely hooked on Stephen King. The second question is, what was the first Stephen King book you read? And Pet Cemetery. I've reread it since then several times. As you can see, I have a lot of things tabbed in this book. So, this is the Stephen King book that got me into reading, and it is my first book by Stephen King that I read. The third question is, have you read a Stephen King published the year you were born? Yes. Salem's Lot, published in 1975, and I was obviously born in 1975. And to this day, Salem's Lot remains one of my favorite King books. Question number 4: which of his books do you prefer to collect? Hardcover editions, paperbacks, or it doesn't matter to you? It really doesn't matter to me. I would like to own all of his books, but I just want to showcase here a couple of my favorite editions that I have. Most recently, I acquired this stunning 50th anniversary edition of Carrie. This was published by Stoddard and Houghton, and this is one of my favorites in the collection. It also has a foreword by Margaret Atwood. And another book that I prize from my Stephen King collections is this edition of Cujo, which I actually bought when I was in Bangor, Maine. So that gives you a little bit of a preview of my answer to one of the upcoming questions. So, question number 5: how many of his books are on your bookshelf? I only have 23 of his books on my shelf right now. However, in the next week or so, I will have 25 of his books on my shelf because I pre-ordered his newest collection. You Like It Darker. And I also ordered a print copy of Different Seasons. So I've read those stories, but I didn't own a copy of Different Seasons. So both of those books should arrive this week. So by the end of this week, I should have 25 of his books on my shelf. Not nearly enough. Number 6: Stephen King is known for long and gory novels. Which of his novels was tough for you to read? So, even though this book was very difficult for me to read in terms of the content, it is still one of my favorites by King, and that is Gerald's Game. As you can see, this is very tabbed. This is a very beloved book, and I literally had to like tape it together because I split it in half, reading and annotating it. So, yeah, difficult as far as content, but like I said, one of my favorite books. By King. The next one is, have you DNF'd a Stephen King book? No, I have not ever, never have I ever DNF'd a Stephen King book. Number 8, have you read his books in publication order? No. I would like to do that one day, after maybe I've kind of read most of what I want to read in order of preference. I think it would be really an amazing experience to go back and read his books in publication order. So maybe one day. Number 9, what Stephen King books would you like to read but haven't read yet? Okay, here's a confession, which is probably going to, make me look like I'm not the constant reader that I claim to be. But I have not read the Dark Tower series. I plan to start and finish that series next year. So, a 2025 goal that I have is to read the Dark Tower series. Question number 10. Name a book he has written that other people liked, but you didn't. I haven't really had that experience. I haven't loved every Stephen King book that I've read, but I cannot really think of one that was very popular with a lot of other people that I didn't really care for. Number 11, name a book of his you think is underrated. I am going to go with Dolores Claiborne for this one. I don't think enough people have read Dolores Claiborne, and I don't think enough people give this book the credit it deserves, especially in terms of his writing of a strong woman character, because this entire novel is written in Dolores's point of view. It's only her, or only she, that speaks in this novel. And it is such a powerful story of a woman who overcomes abuse and protects not only herself, but also her children. And I'll talk a little bit more about my love for Dolores in just a few minutes, too. Question number 12. Which Stephen King characters would you like to have dinner with? So you're about to start seeing some connections between some of the answers that I've previously given and some of the answers I've given now. I would especially like to have dinner with Carrie White, with Beverly Marsh from It, with Jesse from Gerald's Game, and Dolores from Dolores Claiborne. I want to have dinner with those 4 women. Question number 13. Has Stephen King inspired you to start reading and writing? Stephen King inspired my master's thesis when I got my master's degree in English. My thesis was titled Eclipsing the Patriarchy, the Power of Intergenerational Female Connection in Stephen King's It, Carrie, Gerald's Game, and Dolores Claiborne. So, yes, he inspired me to write for sure. Question number 14. If you were able to meet Stephen King, what would you say? I would probably be just completely starstruck. I'm really not sure that I could say anything. I probably would just be standing there like, I don't know. Really, I don't. I probably really wouldn't be able to form any kind of a coherent thought at all. But I would love the opportunity. I'd love to see what I might do. Question number 15. Have you ever been to Bangor, Maine? Yes. For my birthday last year, so in April of 2023, my husband and I traveled to Bangor, Maine, specifically to celebrate my birthday in the area where Stephen King lived and where so many of his books were inspired. While we were there, we did something called the SK Tour, and I will link that in the description box below. So, as part of the SK Tour, we got to go to so many different places around Bangor, including Stephen King's home. I do have pictures outside of Stephen King's home, so I got to do that. I also, on the tour, we got to see the sewer where Stephen King was kind of walking the streets and getting the inspiration for Pennywise. I also got to sit on the bench where Stephen King sat when he was writing parts of it, and that bench is located right by the standpipe, famous from the story. So yeah, I got to put my behind on the same bench that Stephen King's was on. On the SK tour, we also got to visit the cemetery that inspired parts of Pet Cemetery in the film version, the 1989 film. That cemetery is the one that is in the film where um, Lewis goes and actually takes Gage's body out, it's the cemetery where Stephen King stood when he played the minister in Pet Cemetery. So if you would also too, like if you would like a video where I show my pictures and talk about my trip to Bangor, I would be happy to do that. This I took the trip before I was doing this YouTube channel, so I don't have the video up here or anything, but I could go back and do like a revisit and talk about it. So there were other parts of the SK tour that were really incredible. We got to pass by like the Barrens, and we also got to go to the canal area where, if you recall in the book where the character of Adrian Mellon is murdered, we got to see that actual place where the real life story that character is based on took place. And then outside of like the SK tour, my husband and I went to have dinner at the Oriental Jade restaurant, which is called Jade of the Orient in the It book. So it was such an amazing experience to be there where Stephen King had been, and where he had, all the inspiration from so many of his stories. And just to find myself in that same place was one of the most amazing experiences that I've ever had in my entire life. So, next question, question number 16. Which do you prefer more, his books or movies? Books. No questions, no doubts there. Number 17, name your favorite Stephen King movies. I like Misery. I think that's a really good adaptation. I like the 1989 Pet Cemetery. It's not a perfect movie, but I think a lot of that too is due to nostalgia, since that's really the first opening I had into falling so much in love with Stephen King's movie version that I wanted to dive into the books. And then I really like the original Salem's Lot miniseries. I think that is a really good adaptation too. Number 18 is to tag people. If you love Stephen King and you see this tag, then please feel free to do this. But I want to tag specifically in this video two fellow booktubers who I know are also big fans of Stephen King. And that is Cliff at Cliff's Dark Gems and Kat at Kat's Novel Adventures. So thank you so much for watching this video. I would love to hear or to read in the comments which Stephen King books are your favorites, which characters you would like to have dinner with, or any of your answers to any of these other questions. So thank you again for watching. I would really appreciate it if you would hit that like button, subscribe, hit that bell so you'll never miss a video from me. Thank you.